Pause the video, take a look at this, and when you're ready to work with me, restart things and we'll dive in. All right. Once again, we're given a GED Science test question that requires a step-by-step approach through the answer choices to get to the correct answer. So let's do that. We're getting used to this process already. Now, choice A says that solubility always increases as temperature increases. So, in other words, is that the case, right? That's what we have to ask. Wait a minute. So if it's always increasing, that means there is no deviation from that. It must always increase, right? So we need to ask ourselves, is that true? Because the question is, which conclusion is supported by the data in the graph? And the graph is going to tell us whether that's true or not. So in this case, we need to check answer choice A by asking, does every line in the graph go up to the right consistently? So let's take a look at this, right? Let's look at what's going on in the purple graph, or the purple line, I should say, in this graph. So here's our little purple line there. Is that going up to the right? And we even saw this line graph before we went through how to break it down. We can tell that that's not really the case for choice A. So in this case, as the temperature increases, the solubility changes depending on the salt. Maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down, maybe it goes up in a continual way, maybe it doesn't. So again, as a result, A cannot be correct. Okay, so this is how you would start to find your way through these answer choices with the given data in this line graph. So now let's check choice B now that we've gone through A carefully. According to B, KCl should be at the highest point in the graph along the 40 degrees Celsius line. So here's our line for 40 degrees Celsius right there, going up and down for 40 degrees. Okay, is this the case? Is the KCl line, don't forget to use the legend right here, is that the one that's highest at 40 degrees Celsius? So you can pause the video to check that out. And once you've done so, restart it and we'll find out what the answer is. All right, so if we take a look at this 40 degrees Celsius line, the salt that's at the highest point is the red line, right there. And that's not the KCl salt, which is the green line. It's this salt instead, the PbNO32 salt, which does have a translation, which we're not going to get to, right? So we know based on this, choice B is incorrect. Goodbye to that. All right, let's move on to C. And according to choice C, as the temperature increases, the rate of change in the solubility of the blue line should change, right? That's the KNO3 line. So, in other words, the speed of the change in the blue line, that solubility shouldn't stay the same as temperature increases. Well, what do you think about that? Is that true? Pause this video to check that out. Okay, so since the blue line curves up as temperature increases, that means that the speed of the change in its solubility does not stay the same. It certainly does change as the temperature gets hotter. So in other words, here's one way to say it. The KNO3 line gets steeper as the temperature increases. And since this is the kind of information we're looking for to check choice C must match it. Now, before we choose C, you can confirm choice D, and you want to confirm that that's incorrect. So let's do that. To check choice D, you need to determine whether the yellow line doesn't go up to the right after it crosses the 80 degrees Celsius line. So is that true? Does the yellow line either stay the same or go down to the right of the 80 degrees Celsius line? What do you think? Well, no, that's not the case. That line continues to go up after 80 degrees Celsius. We can see that. So remember, we're dealing here with the yellow line. Here's 80 degrees Celsius. It continues to go up slightly to the right after that point. So we found why D is incorrect, leaving C absolutely as the correct answer. Excellent. Now, let's look at another question that tests your ability to handle trends. Okay, so here's question 5. As always, pause the video, get a lay of the land here, and then when you're ready, you can work through with me. All right. Now, since there are 2 lines on this graph, it's important to know which is which. The legend tells us, and remember, the legend is right here. So that tells us that the continuous or unbroken line represents the host insect population. Yikes. While the broken line represents the parasitic fungus population. Ooh. So the numbered point in question would be on the broken line. Again, that's the parasitic fungus line. Now, to figure out which point at time A continues the growth trend of the fungus, you'll need to know what the trend is before time A. So pause this video again. Take a look at how the trend of the fungus line represents or responds, to the trend of the host insect line. So again, how does the trend of the fungus line respond to the trend of the host insect line? Also, since the host insect line continues throughout the entire graph, take a look at the full trend of that host insect line to figure out where the fungus line should be at time A. All right, so you have your marching orders, pause the video, work through that, and then we'll find out what it is together. All right, starting at the left of this graph. So let's just start right over here. You can see where the fungus line is in relation to the host insect line. Also note that the host insect line starts by curving up to a peak, then it curves down. Now that trend for the host insect line repeats itself. That line curves back up to its peak after it hits its lowest point. So at time A, the fungus line should do the same, repeat itself. Or in other words, let's see this on the slide. Based on this trend, the correct point should be on the same horizontal line as the point 1 cycle earlier. So which of the 4 points at time A, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which of those 4 points matches where the fungus line was exactly 1 cycle earlier? Pause the video again to find that correct point on your own. All right, let's check what you've done. But before we do, don't forget to check out the on test day instructions, and that's right here. So when they appear in questions, make sure that you know what's going on there. And for this question, those instructions tell us to select the area on the graph that continues the growth trend, and we can remove a point by placing the arrow over that point and clicking the left mouse button. So we have that information. All right, let's do this. Now let's start right at point 1. For point 1, highlight there with a purple X. You can see that it's way above any point anywhere on the fungus line before. So if we do a horizontal line, yeah, it's way above. We can see that. So that's not going to match. So we can get rid of answer choice A. Similarly, the second point here is way above, or above where it should be. So B can go as well. Now, that takes us to point 3. And here's where the fungus line is exactly 1 cycle earlier. Let's mark that. So 1 cycle earlier, it's right about there. So once we have that, does that line up with point 3 or point 4? That's the question. Well, if we draw the horizontal line, it lines up with point 3. So 3 is the correct point to select, which makes C the correct answer. Wonderful, wonderful. We've just handled GED scientific trends and predictions, which mirror, of course, what happens in the real world. So now it's time to talk about some common statistical formulas that might pop up on test day. Information, here it is. Pause the video, take a few moments to read through this, restart the video, and we'll go to work. All right, so we're asked for the median body weight. Yes. And the median would be where in this list of animals? Remember, the median is all about the center of the data, so it's in the middle here. And how many points? There's 7. So remember, when there's an odd number of terms, the middle term is the median. In this case, that's the 4th point. That would be in the middle. Now, we can count up to 4. Shrew is 1, cactus mouse is 2, flying squirrel is 3, 4 is the rabbit. And that's what you would put into the rectangle according to the test day instructions at the bottom right corner. Now, there's another way to get to the middle. You can work from the ends into the middle, like so. So on the ends, we have shrew and horse. They're gone. Then we have cactus mouse, and that's gone along with human. And then we get rid of flying squirrel and dog, leaving us again at the middle of rabbit. Again, that's the answer. So just make sure that if median pops up, you know, okay, it's the middle. What is the middle? Making sure you're going in order to find it. Next question for this information that we talked about with metabolism. Take a few moments, pause the video, read through this, and when you're ready, restart it. All right, so now that we have this, let's be very careful with what's going on. Note it mentions without the shrew here. Then we're dealing with the new average metabolic rate. So we're taking the shrew out. And here's our shrew right there in our graph. Now, how does the shrew's metabolic rate compare to the other animals' metabolic rates? So make sure that you check the y-axis, which means that you should check how much higher or lower the point for the shrew is as compared to the other points. So is the shrew's point higher, lower, or about the same? Well, it's higher. It's the highest up, right? So if we remove the shrew's metabolic rate, what would happen to the average metabolic rate for the rest of the points? In other words, by removing the highest rate, will the new average go up, go down, or stay about the same? Well, you get rid of the highest here, so that metabolic rate would have to go down. There we go, and that lowers the overall average. And that matches answer choice B. Yeah.